Okay, let's now look at question 7, which is finance. Okay, let's start 7.1. It says calculate the effective interest rate per annum if an investment earns an interest at a rate of 11.5% per annum compounded monthly. Okay, so what is effective interest? Effective interest is basically if there was no compounding, right? How much would I actually have to charge the interest at? Okay, so 11.5% per annum is when it's compounded monthly. Now, if I wasn't compounding it, what interest rate would I have to charge to get to the same total amount of interest? Okay, that's what effective interest is. Now, to calculate that, there's a formula. So it's 1 plus I effective equals to 1 plus the I nominal. Okay, so that this is the nominal interest, this if you are compounding, okay, over the time to the power of the time. Okay, so 1 plus, and now we're solving for the effective. 1 plus the nominal is 11.5%, so that's 0.115. Okay, I just took 11.5 divided by 100, and then you get 0.115 over, now how many months are there? We're compounding it monthly. Okay, so if we're looking per annum, that's 12 months. Okay, so 12 and 12. Okay, and now it's just a simple case of solving for I effective. Okay, so I'll put this entire thing into my calculator. I'll get an answer and then I'll subtract it by 1. Okay, so let's do that. So on my calculator now, 1 plus 0.115 over 12 all to the power of 12. Okay, and then I'll subtract 1 from that answer, and I get 0.1213. Okay, and that's the same as if I multiply it by 100, that gives me 12.13%. Okay, let's look at 7.2 now. 7.2 says Karabo bought a computer for 4,700 Rand. The value of the computer depreciated at a rate of 18% per annum using the reducing balance method. Okay, calculate the book value of the computer after it was bought. Okay, so with depreciation, there's the straight line method and there's the reducing balance. So reducing balance you can think of as the reverse of compound interest. Okay, so you'll see the formula looks almost identical. Okay, let's just write it down. A equals to P1. Now in compound interest we have a plus here. Okay, so for reducing balance depreciation we have a minus. So minus I to the power of n. Okay, so let's see what the question says. Calculate the book value. Okay, so in all these things, A represents the current value of the thing and P is the initial value. Okay, so we're solving for A in this case, and P is our initial value, which was 4,700. So 4,700 times 1 minus, and then the depreciation rate was 18% per annum. Okay, so that's 0.18 to the power of n. Alright, how many years was it? 4 years. Okay, so 4. Okay, and then I'll just plug all this into my calculator. So 4,700 times 1 minus 0.18 all to the power of 4. And that gives me 2,124.97. Okay, so that's the current value. So you see we started it being worth 4,700 and then after 4 years it's now worth 2,124 Rand and 97 cents. Okay, 7.3, let's do it here. This person made an initial deposit of 20,000 Rand into an investment account that paid an interest rate of 7.2% per annum compounded quarterly. Okay, so that's 4 times per year. After 2 years, the interest rate changed to 7.8% per annum compounded monthly. 4 years after his initial deposit, he withdrew 2,500 from his investment. Calculate how much he had invested in this investment account 2 years after the initial deposit was made. Okay, so 2 years after the initial deposit. So there's a lot of things happening here. Let's try to break it down. So initially there was 20,000 Rand in the account, right? And it was compounded quarterly at that rate after 2 years. Okay, so after 2 years. So we can ignore all of this for now because in the first question is only asking for the first 2 years. Okay, so 7.3.1 A is equal to P1 plus I to the power of n, right? So A and the principal amount, so the starting amount was 20,000. Okay, 1 plus. Now remember, for the interest rate, it was compounded. So we have to take 7.2. Okay, so 7.2% the same as 0.072 over, and it's compounded quarterly, so 4 times a year, right? Over 4 to the power of. Now let's think about it. Okay, if there was no compounding, we were just looking per annum, we would put 2 years, right? But remember, we need to calculate interest 4 times a year because it's compounded quarterly. So 2 times 4 is 8, right? So it's 2 years happening 4 times a year. Okay, so that means the total is 2 times 4, which is 8. Okay, I'll plug all this into my calculator now and see what it gets. So 20,000 times 1 plus 0.072 over 4 all to the power of 8. And that gives me 23,068 rands and 12 cents. Okay, so that's how much it's worth after 2 years. How much will the investment be worth 7 years after the initial deposit? Okay, so 7 years after, let's see now. So now we looked at it until this point, until here. Okay, so now we can ignore this first part because we already know how much it's worth after 2 years. Okay, after 2 years, the interest rate changed to 7.8% per annum compounded monthly. Okay, 4 years after his initial deposit, he withdrew 2,500 from his investment. Okay, so let's establish a timeline here. Okay, so at the start it was 20,000 Rand, right? At the 2 year mark, so this is 2 years, it's now worth this amount here, 23. I'll just say 23 and then we know it's that amount. Okay. Okay, so it's this amount here after 2 years, right? Now, 4 years after his initial deposit, okay, so at year 4, he withdrew 2,500, okay? Okay. And we know that from this point onwards, from 2 years onwards, the interest rate was now, just this year, it changed to 7.8 compounded monthly. Okay, so now let's work all this out. So we're going to have to do this in 2 steps. Because of the withdrawal, we're going to have to do this in 2 steps. So we're initially going to find these 2 years from the 2nd year to the 4th year. Right, we're going to find from year to year. We're going to find an amount. We're going to get what it's worth at this point. We're going to take that amount, subtract the amount he withdrew. Okay, and then we can find a new amount from there till the 7th year, which is what they asked for. How much will it be worth after 7 years? Okay, so let's do those 2 calculations. So let's start with this. This is the easy one, right? Well, they're both easy. Let's see. Okay, A is equal to P1 plus I to the power of n. Okay. Now the principal amount, like I said, we started with this. So 23,068.12 times 1 plus. Now let's look again, right? The interest rate was 7.8% compounded monthly. So now it's 0.078 over 12 because it's monthly, right? And the time is, now remember, 2 years, and the interest is calculated 12 times a year because it's monthly. So 2 times 12, so that gives us 24. Okay, let's get rid of this for now. Now I'll plug all this into my calculator. So I'm going to use that same answer from before, 23068 times 1 plus 0.078 over 12 all to the power of 24. And that gives me a value of 26949.02. Okay. Now, so that's at this point here, right? Now, at that point, you withdrew 2,500. Okay. So my worth after at year 4, right? So therefore, at year 4 is this amount minus 2,500. So minus 2,500, that gives us 449.02. Okay. And right, so now I can put in my value at that point, right? So that's at year 4, it's now worth 24 ... Okay, so that's just this value here. Okay, now we're going to look at this second part here. So from year 4 to year 7, so that's 3 years. Okay, I'm just going to do it over here. So A is equal to P1 plus I to the power of n. Okay, A is equal to, and our principal amount is now this. Okay, so 24,449.02, 1 plus I, and remember the interest rate hasn't changed, so this is still 0.078 over 12, and now it's for 3 years times 12. Okay, so 3 times 12 is 36. Okay, punch all of that into my calculator. So I'll use the same answer from before, 24,449 times 1 plus 0.078 over 12 all to the power of 36. And that gives me 30,871 rands and 48 cents. Okay. So that means that after 7 years, it's now worth 30,000 and something. Okay, so it's this point here. Okay, so let's recap what we did, right? So this guy invested 20,000 rand. Okay, so this is year 0. Okay, he invested 20,000. That's how much it's worth. Okay, that paid an interest of 7.2% compounded quarterly. Okay, so we can calculate the value at 2 years now, right? We did it here. Okay, this is the value at 2 years. So that's how much the account is now worth. Then after 2 years, the interest rate changed to 7.8% compounded monthly. Okay. So from this green line represents that. So from that point onwards, it's now 7.8% compounded monthly. 4 years after his initial deposit, so at year 4, he withdrew 2,500 rands. Okay. And then now we have to find what's worth after 7 years. Okay, so remember where we at now. We started at 20,000. We calculated how much it's worth after at the 2 year mark. Right now, from this point onwards, we're doing basically 2 separate calculations because at some point at year 4 he withdrew some money. Okay, so from year 2 to year 4, that's 2 years, and we can calculate how much it grew by. So it grew from 23,000 and something to 26,000 and something, right? At that point, he decided to take out 2,500, okay, and that brought us to this value here. So now at the 4 year mark, it's actually worth 24 point something, okay. Then what happened? He didn't take anything out, nothing changed. The interest rate was still 7.8% compounded monthly, okay. So at that point, all we had to do was just calculate for those last 3 years, and we used our principal amount as how much it was worth at that point. Okay, so it's not complicated. You just have to break down what's been asked and then answer it.